everyone, and welcome to today's session. So today we are going to continue our discussion on the topic of chapter 2. Okay. In last session, what we did is let's have a quick summary and a recap of that. So in last session, we discussed about SA 250, considerations of laws and regulations. We understood what kind of laws and regulations could be there, what could be the what is the responsibility with respect to laws and regulations. We understood all this thing, and then we understood, okay, what could be the part or execution that could be done with the laws and regulations. Then we came to SA 260 when it was respect to reporting or communication with those charged with governance, what to communicate, to whom I need to communicate, which responsibilities, significant findings, exceptions are required to be communicated, then additional independence communication and how to communicate. That is something we discussed in the last session. So before I proceed for this current, topic that I want to start, any doubts you guys have? Any doubt? Any doubts? No? Okay. So if no doubts, then let me proceed further. Now, as we discussed about communication, okay, as we discussed about communication, there is another communication which is required. There is one more communication which is required, and that is with respect to internal controls. Now, you tell me, guys, why you think communication with respect to internal controls is necessary? Why communication with respect to internal controls is necessary? Why do you think the communication with internal controls is kind of necessary thing? If I have to write, communicating deficiencies in internal control to those charged with governance and management. Why do you think this is necessary? Communicating deficiencies to an internal control to those charged with governance and management. To understand the risk level and determine the materiality. Good. Okay. What else? Why do you think it is required and necessary? We have discussed this one also. Trust me. We have discussed this one also. Okay. Remember, we discussed this particular thing, significant difficulties or significant matters that are already discussed, kind of significant difficulties encountered during the audit. Can I say deficiency would be kind of same, a significant difficulty? So if I identified a deficiency, then it could be significant difficulty plus, or I can say it could form part of uh, circumstances that affect the form and content of audit report. If there is a deficiency, then it will affect my audit report. It may result into a qualification. Can I say that also may form part of this? If that is the case, then that is something we are already required to communicate. Now, SA 265 specifically address these areas. Okay, when you identify a deficiency in internal control, you need to communicate to those charged with governance and management. Now, what is like, okay, we understood what is required to be communicated. Now, what is deficiency, by the way? We need to first understand what is deficiency. What do you think is a deficiency in internal control? What do you mean by deficiency? So this is the thing first I need to understand. So in order to understand what what I have to, report, I have to report deficiency. So I need to understand what is deficiency. I need to understand what is deficiency. Come on, guys. Okay, Yukta, very good. Very good. Come on, guys. What is deficiency? What do you mean by deficiency in internal control? Good, Charu. Good, Yukta. Very good. Very good. So when I say deficiency, I mean that deficiency is something, if, see, understand if there is a control. Okay. Now, if that control is designed in such a way that it is subject to, or supposed to prevent, detect, or, identify a misstatement. Now, if that control is designed in such a way that it is not preventing, or implemented in such a way that it is not preventing, or being operated in such a way that it is not preventing, detecting, or identifying the issues, then there is a deficiency. So when a control is either designed, implemented, or operated in such a way that it is unable to prevent, detect, okay, unable to prevent or detect the misstatement in the financial statement in the financial statement, okay, on timely basis. If that is a scenario, then the control would be, say that there is a deficiency in the internal control. Okay. Now, when I talk about deficiency in the internal control that is there, now there is one more thing we need to understand: what is significant deficiency. If I have to talk about significant deficiency in internal control, okay, significant deficiency is nothing but your individual deficiencies plus deficiency, multiple individual deficiency and so on that require attention of those charged with governance. Okay. So if individual or together a deficiency or a combination of deficiency require attention of those charged with governance, in that case that becomes a significant deficiency. Again, individual deficiency kind of or combination. Individual deficiency or combination of deficiency, if they require attention of those charged with governance, yes, that is a significant deficiency. Okay, that we understood now. What is a deficiency, individual deficiency, and what is a significant deficiency. Now, let's understand what SA 265 requires us to do. Okay. SA 265 requires us that the auditor is required to, okay, perform audit procedures in order to identify these deficiencies. But if these deficiencies has been identified, then the auditor is required to understand whether they are the significant deficiencies or not, and accordingly the auditor is required to communicate to those charged with governance and management. Okay, so auditor is required to communicate to those charged with governance and management on a timely basis the significant deficiencies that are there. Okay, and other deficiencies that I have identified but not communicated to management. So there are two things that are required to be communicated. One, communication with those charged with governance and communication to management. Now, what is required to be communicated to management is significant deficiencies, okay, significant deficiencies in internal control that has been communicated or intend to be communicated to those charged with governance. So significant deficiencies, to both of them you are required to communicate. Sorry. Second thing that we need to communicate is other deficiencies which are not significant. Other deficiencies which are not significant. Okay, we need to communicate those deficiencies also to management. And other deficiencies means kind of deficiencies which requires management attention. So that is something other deficiencies. Now, when I say I need to communicate these two things to both of them. But what I need to communicate is like form and content of communication kind of. Now you tell me guys, if you want to communicate to management, okay, there is a deficiency, what you will write in your letter? Like what things you will mention in your letter? If, okay, let's say for example, there is a deficiency in the three-way match control. Hypothetical example, let's say there is a three-way match control that is PO, GRN and invoice match. Okay. Now, let's say for example, in this control, there is a deficiency that this control deficiency that is not implemented appropriately. And how did you identify this? Let's say you tested 25 samples and have identified three failing or exceptions. So you tell me what you will report to those charged with governance or management in this way. Like in this example, if you have to report to those charged with governance and management, what you will write to them? What things you will mention to them? The form and the content I'm asking of communication. What things you will mention? You will mention there's a deficiency. Then what you will mention? That is very important to understand. Come on, guys. Come on quickly. What you will mention in your communication? What you will mention that, okay, there is a deficiency, but what you will write in that in communication? What if I just, write this particular thing in my communication to those charged with governance? Hello all. There is deficiency in three-way match control that you should know. Catch it. Regards, Harshad. Okay, let's say I wrote this mail to those charged with governance that there is a deficiency and you are required to look into this deficiency. Please look into this. Okay. What is the issue in this? What is the issue in this particular, communication? Or is this fine? I'll put date also. What is the problem in this communication? If I send these two lines, I think that will be sufficient or not. What is missing here, guys? Come on, quickly. Good, Shruti. Very good. Good, Salish. What should be there in this then? What you should mention? What you will mention, Shruti and Salish? Come on, quickly, guys. What you will mention then in this? What details you will mention in your communication? Good, Charu. Can I say I will mention like, for example, instead of, the two above lines, what I do is I can say, hello all, that we have identified deficiencies in three-way match control when we were testing for period starting from 1/4/22 to 31/3/23. There are total 3 samples out of 25 which are not as per or which were not detected, kind of. Which were not detected by the control. And what I will do is I will explain the missing part in each of the sample. Sample 1, what is a miss? What is missed? Sample 2, same, what is missed? Sample 3, what is missed? Kind of. I will provide them this particular table. Okay. Then I will write potential impact of this. What is the potential impact of deficiency? Like for example, if there is a failure in sample, then there could be 3 type of potential impact. 1, financial impact. 1, compliance related impact, and third one could be operational related impact. So what potential impact it is, financial, compliance, operational, and how it is required to be dealt with. Okay. After potential impact, I need to provide them remediation of control. Then how you can remediate the control if there is time available. This all thing is required to be, communicated to management instead of just one line. Okay, there is a issue in the control. No, we need to communicate the form, while in form and content, we need to communicate the description, explanation, possible impact, and if possible, remediation of the control. So these are the things that are required to be communicated to management or those charged with governance, kind of. Okay. Any doubt? The way we do in SA 260, that we share auditors responsibility, like what is our responsibility, that auditors responsibility to issue opinion. Okay, so in the same way, SA 265 also says you to provide management your responsibilities. With respect to internal controls. So SA 265 says that you also provide your responsibility with respect to asset internal controls. That is, number one, audit. The audit was the purpose of to express an opinion. Second, while auditing, we will consider internal controls. While auditing, the auditor will include consideration of internal controls. Okay, relevant to the financial statement during design procedures and uh, during the whole procedure, whatever is, there. And then the auditor will also explain that the matters that are reported are limited to the deficiencies here. As per this essay, okay, the matters which are reported are limited to deficiencies that auditor has identified. Okay, and the auditor that is conclude are sufficient. Now, why the third point is required? Because it should not be understood that, okay, we are communicating all the deficiencies. No. So that's why this particular point comes in. The matters which are reported are limited to the identified ones. That is something there, and required to be mentioned when we are communicating auditor's responsibility. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? I'll take your doubt, Anup, at the end of the session. It's, I think, related to some other topic. I'll definitely take it to at the end of the session. Any other doubt, guys? That is my essay 265. Pretty simple, pretty small, nothing difficult here. Pretty much, straightforward what is required to be done. Again, any doubt, guys? Sorry. No doubts? So somewhere it will be covered in, if you want to look into the module, let me show you in module also. You can see in chapter 4, it is there. It is, just a minute, let me tell you the page number. You can see 4.61. Okay. 4.61 is there, and there is a component of the internal control with respect to the communication that we will discuss. Why I have taken this topic now? Reason because this topic, it's in connection with 260. So 260, 265 usually go hand in hand. That's why. So you can say 4.61 or 4.61 will be the the one you are looking for. In second chapter, you can say 2.35 and 2.34 with respect to the communication. Any other doubts? Okay. If no further doubts, then let's proceed to the next topic for today, and that is very interesting one, I would say. Okay. Let me add a page here. So now let's say, for example, Mr. A, who is your friend, and you, okay, Mr. A and you both decided to do a joint audit of XYZ Limited. Now, you and Mr. A, you both are chartered accountants. Now, you both have cleared chartered accountant. Okay. CA final exam. Now, you became CA, you obtained COP. You both decided to do a joint audit of XYZ Limited. Okay. Now the question comes is, when you decided to do a joint audit, what you will do in joint audit? What will be your course of action? The first steps you will take. So if you have to do a joint audit, what you will do? Come on, guys. So if I say now you have to do a joint audit of XYZ Limited, what will be your steps? What you will do? What you will do, guys? Come on, quickly. If I say, okay, now you have to, be, you need to conduct joint audit with your friend, what you will do? How will you conduct joint audit? Come on, guys. Okay, you have to conduct joint audit. Then what you will do? What will be your next steps? Okay, let's do joint audit. We'll together with, we'll sit and, we'll do the audit. Done. That's it. There should be some way, approach, something you will follow. Correct, Charu? Very good. Very good, Charu. Good, Salish. Very good. Come on, guys. What you will do when you have to do a joint audit? Okay, very good. Very good, Mancha. What else? This is only just one area that you guys are saying. There are a lot many things that is required to be seen, required to be looked into. Come on, quickly, guys. Okay, Mancha, good. I would say it's beyond responsibilities. There are multiple things beyond responsibility. The one answer I am getting is only about responsibility. There is much more than the responsibility in case of joint audit. Come on, guys. Think of a scenario of a joint audit. You and your friend are together. Only you will discuss about responsibility while starting the joint audit, or there will be something else also. Okay, why don't you bifurcate the things in these stages? Plan, perform, conclude, and report. These are the stages of audit. Tell me, bifurcate in these stages of audit that okay, what you will do with respect to joint audit in these stages. Come on. Now, some of you were saying setting responsibilities, segregating responsibilities, set the responsibilities. So let's say, for example, responsibilities in planning. I'll identify the responsibilities, individual responsibilities. What else? What else you will do after identifying responsibilities? Okay, audit plan. Understood. You will together discuss audit plan. Good, Mancha. What else? Some part of audit will be performed jointly and some part will be individually. Okay, Salesh, good. So you are saying uh, performance, joint performance of audit. Okay, joint testing. Good. What else? Allocation of work, kind of part of responsibility. Kind of part of responsibility itself, allocation of work. Okay, good. Charu, kind of again responsibility like who will perform which execution, discussion of audit plan, who will be there at the client location. Okay, good. This kind of detail I like. Okay, who will be there at the client location? Who will go? At what time? Means, let's say, for example, if there are 3 months required at the client place, then who will be there at the client place from the team? Overall strategy, audit plan. Yes, I have already written Geeta. Good. See, I cannot just say, okay, that is, I have to report. I only the point that is required to be discussed is the responsibility. No, there is way beyond responsibilities. Allocation of work that is required to be finalized when you are doing a joint audit. Come on, guys. Very good, Charu. Kind of who is going to interact with the senior member in the organization, conduct the meeting, present the report, kind of communications with those charged with governance. We just now saw that auditor's responsibility. In case of joint audit, who will fulfill this responsibility? Communication to those charged with governance and management. Again, good mancha, like kind of, you can say part of audit plan that personnel and all those stuff. Very good, Charu. What else do you think? Okay, I'll tell you. When I will start a joint audit with my friend, first of all, I will understand and agree upon the terms and conditions of the audit. Okay. So when I'm planning, before planning itself, I'll see whether the both of the teams, independence and ethical requirement of both teams. Okay. So I will see who is, like what are the independence and ethical requirement, whether they are able to satisfy that or not, or is there any conflict of interest, whether I can take it or not. Fine. Number two, when I'll start with the planning, I'll say, okay, my friend, you do this, you do this. I will do all these things, and accordingly, we will, proceed with the audit. Okay, fine. We will discuss audit plan. We will communicate to management, but also along with that, we will also discuss in detail, along with the responsibilities, that what procedures we are going to perform. That is part of the audit plan. Okay, fine. Now, the second thing will be when we will perform risk assessment procedures. Either together or individually. We will perform risk assessment procedures together or individually. Now, there will be something that we might come to know. So, that is information I will gather. Kind of, let's say, for example, I performed the risk assessment procedure and I came to know that there are chances of fraud in fixed asset. But as per the initial allocation, fraud fixed asset was, to be handled by my friend. Will you go and tell your friend that, okay, there is a fraud in fixed asset? Again, when I was doing risk assessment procedures, I identified that there are chances of fraud in fixed asset. Now, fixed asset was the responsibility of my friend, the another joint auditor. Will you go and say to your friend that there are chances of fraud, or you will let him find, okay, there could be a chances of fraud? What you will do? Will you tell him that, okay, there is a chance of fraud in fixed asset, or you will keep your mouth shut because of the confidentiality, and you will, expect your friend to identify? What you will do? What you will do, guys? Correct, Geeta, Charu, you will inform. So the information that you will gather is required to be shared with joint auditor, and same way you need to ask your information also, that okay, is there anything that I need to understand, I need to know, that you have the information for that. Okay, once you do that, once I do that, I have the information, I risk assessment are performed, we will go to proceed, we will proceed to testing. Okay, so joint testing will be like of common plus specific areas. Like, if there is a common area, then we will test together. If there is a specific area where I need to test, I will test that area. If required, I will involve expert. Then how to be involved, how expert is required to be involved, what is the scenario of involving expert, everything that is required to be understood. Okay, which area, whose area it is. What else, guys? Come on. What else you will do? We just discussed now plan and perform. Let's go to the next steps. Conclude and report. What you will do in concluding? What you will do in concluding? What you will do in concluding? Now you perform the testing as per the agreed plan. You agree the plan, you perform the testing. What next? That's it. Done. Okay, Salish, will express opinion. Good. But how you will express opinion? TTMM kind of. तू तेरा मैं मेरा. So how will you express opinion? Will you follow that concept? Good. Good Charu, good Geeta. Come on, guys, quickly communicate with each other. Okay, Mancha, we already seen that. We will communicate. What else I am expecting here? You have to do audit. You have to see practically. There will be 10 different areas other than this. There will be, you will be required to discuss. What you will do in conclusion tab. Conclusion, after testing, before finalizing the audit report. After testing and before finalizing the audit report, what you will do? Good, Salish. Can I say I will look into misstatements? His misstatement. Okay, what are the misstatement that he or her, he or she has identified? Okay, why? Because together the misstatement can be material. So I need to analyze his or her misstatement identified to understand misstatement with respect to materiality. We'll see materiality, overall performance. Okay, materiality. So with respect to materiality, we will understand, okay, your misstatement are this, my misstatement are this. Now together, what is the overall level of misstatement? Whether it is a, kind of, misstatement that is making material misstatement or still small, or what is the scenario? What after seeing the misstatement? Very good, Mancha. We will reassess the impact of misstatement on audit plan and risk assessment. For example, we were there, we thought, okay, now fixed asset is a pretty simple area. There is no need to test. Hypothetical example, we thought that fixed asset is a very simple area. No need to test further in fixed asset. But when I was testing the purchase, addition to the fixed asset, and my friend was testing depreciation and disposal of fixed asset. We both identified a lot of problems. We both identified there is a lot of miss of controls, missing controls kind of. Now, if that is a scenario, then we need to understand, okay, earlier we identified this is the low risk area. Now there could be a high risk area. We need to see and gather audit evidence accordingly. Okay, we need to see and gather audit evidence accordingly. And we need to reassess the impact of misstatement on audit plan and risk assessment. Correct, Charu, very good. We will discuss is there any overlapping area or area left out. Very good. Kind of communication between both auditors, continuous communication, I would say. In all four stages, we require continuous communication between both auditors. Okay. Continuous communication between joint auditors, kind of in all the stages. What else? Come on, guys. What else you will do? Come on, guys, quickly, quickly. Last part, reporting. What you will do in reporting? Very important part. That is also a good question, Mancha. That is something, we will discuss. Is there any need to review the work done by another auditor? And how much? Come on, guys. Now there are 3 to 4 things still left that is required to be, finalized, discussed before you complete the audit with the joint auditor. See from where we started. We started from the responsibility. We started and we were only thinking about one point, responsibility. Now we have expanded our horizon. We expanded our point of view. No, beyond responsibilities, what are there that we need to discuss with our joint auditor? Correct, Charu. We need to assemble and summarize the audit observations and result. Yes, kind of, misstatements. What else? What else, guys? Okay, very good, Geeta. Very good. I'll come to that point. Very good. What about reporting? What you will do with respect to reporting, guys? How will you address the matter of reporting? Will you both issue a common audit report or separate audit report? What will be done out of these both? Common audit report, you both will issue same audit report, or you both will issue different audit report. The way I told you, TTMM, तू तेरा देख मैं मेरा देख, kind of. Good Bansha. So, what you will do with respect to reporting? Who will sign the report? Who will be signing partner out of these two partners? Either you will be signing partner or your friend will be signing partner. Who will be signing partner? Or you both will sign? Whose membership number will be there? Who will generate UDIN? There are lot many questions that are required to be answered when you are doing a joint audit. It's not only about responsibilities. It's way beyond responsibilities in case of a joint audit. So let us understand. Now, this was just an example when it comes to a joint audit. Just an example. Let's understand in detail all these questions with exceptions and if there is anything else. Essay 299, that is joint audit of financial statement. Now the question comes first that what is the scope of this particular standard? See, every standard has a scope, and every standard is there for a reason. Then why this standard is there? What is the purpose of having this standard? SA 299 joint audit of financial statement. That is first you are required to understand. So SA 299 is kind of providing you principles, lay down the principle for effective conduct of joint audit. So what it does is SA 299 helps in laying down the principle for effective conduct of joint audit. Okay. That is the first thing, like effective principles of joint audit. Means how to conduct a joint audit. Okay. And not only that, but to conduct joint audit plus in manner to achieve the overall objective of the auditor as provided in SA 200. Means it is not only talking about that how you should conduct joint audit, but it is also providing you guidance that how while conducting the joint audit you can achieve the overall objectives of the auditor as provided in SA 200. Okay, how many of you know what is the overall objective of the auditor? Can anyone tell me what is the overall objective of the auditor? As per SA 200, what is overall objective of the auditor? What is the overall objective of the auditor? Simple question. SA 200, what is my overall objective? Come on, guys. Now this should be, you should have this on your, mouth that, okay, overall objective, this is my overall objective. Very good, Mohammed. Very good. What is overall objective, guys? Come on. We are what for what we are doing audit. Very good, Mancha. Why we are doing audit? We are doing audit just to sign the audit report. What is the overall objective? Come on, quickly. Overall objective of the audit. Why we are doing audit? What is the purpose of doing audit? Okay, Geeta. Good. Okay, Mancha, Mohammed. If I say the overall objective of audit is to give true and fair view of financial statement is correct or wrong. Whether this is correct or wrong, what you will say? Come on, guys. What you will say? Whether the overall objective of audit is to give true and fair view of financial statement is correct or wrong? Very good, Mohammed. And why? Very good, Mancha. Very good. Yes, no. The overall objective of audit is to give true and fair view of financial statement. Yes, no. Correct, incorrect. Simple. Okay. Good, Mohammed. Good, Manan. Very good. And what is the reason? See, understand. Now, first, we need to understand, okay, when I talk about overall objective of audit, I'm going to the very basic level. And I expect that everyone should know this because that is a fundamental and the basic of the audit. Okay. Now, when I write that the overall objective of audit is to give true and fair view of financial statement, that is totally incorrect. Reason because to give the true and fair view of financial statement means to prepare financial statement in a way that it gives true and fair view. That is the responsibility of management, not of auditor. That is incorrect. You are talking about this preparing FS. Preparing FS is the responsibility of the management, not auditor. Although we know that, okay, prepare, if I tell you preparation of the financial statement, you will say, yes, it's a responsibility of management. I say, the overall objective is to give true and fair view of financial statement. Kind of, you are saying same thing in a different word. So in that case, whenever you write any of the thing in exam, you have to be clear with your words. That is, overall objective is not to give true and fair view of financial statement. True and fair view is required to be given by management. But what is our role is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements, the financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud and error, thereby, and because of this, I have to first obtain the assurance that they are free from material misstatement, and thereby that when I get the assurance that enabling the auditor, thereby enabling the auditor to express an opinion. On whether FS financial statement are prepared or whether financial statement gives true a fair view of the state of the affairs. Okay. Or kind of we can say are prepared in all material aspects. I'll write below. In all material aspects in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. Simple. When I say given true and fair view, it's a kind of, another terminology for that. This is are prepared in all material aspects in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework. We will see there are two types of financial reporting framework, compliance framework and fair presentation framework. So when there is a fair presentation framework, that this line changes a bit. So we'll see also that one. But see, that is the overall objective here. Means first I need to obtain reasonable assurance that there are no material misstatement or financial statement is free from material misstatement. That once I have that assurance by collecting the evidence, then only I could express an opinion regarding the true and fair view or regarding the application, whether they are in accordance with the financial reporting framework or whether they present true and fair view. So whether the financial statement present true and fair view of the state of affairs of entity or company or whatsoever it is. Okay, so that is a true and fair view when we are using fair presentation framework, and we'll see that in later chapters. But understand two part: one, obtaining reasonable assurance and expressing opinion. First, obtain the assurance, then express the opinion. That is the overall objective. A lot of people write, okay, the overall objective of auditor is to obtain reasonable assurance with respect to true and fair view. That is wrong. No, that is incorrect. The way you are writing is totally incorrect. Reason because it's not only about obtaining reasonable assurance. So you may write obtaining reasonable assurance that the financial statement give true and fair view. But beyond that, the auditor's responsibility or overall objective is to express an opinion on that. So first you obtain reasonable assurance with respect to the material misstatement, and then you express opinion on the true and fair. I cannot just obtain reasonable assurance with respect to true and fair view and say that is my objective. No. Your objective is a twofold objective. The first and fundamental thing that we need to understand when we are doing audit. That's why this particular, these parts denote collecting evidence. Okay, that I need to perform testing, I need to plan, perform, and collect evidence and analyze that evidence. And on the basis of that, when I have reasonable assurance that okay, there is no material misstatement, I will go for reporting. That is the whole audit we are doing here. Okay, so that is the fundamental and the basic, that is overall objective of audit. Whenever asked, you have to write in this way itself. Do not trim it down. Don't trim it. The key point here. Some people will trim like, okay, to obtain reasonable assurance whether the financial statement are as per the applicable financial reporting framework. No. Or some people may write only one part to express an opinion. No, that is wrong. You have to write appropriately. What is the overall objective in its whole sense? When we write to give a true and fair view, that is the responsibility of the management, that they have to prepare financial statement in such a way that it should give true and fair view. That is not my responsibility as an auditor. No. So whenever you write auditor's responsibility or overall objective is to give true and fair view, grossly incorrect. I'll say grossly incorrect. Remember that. In audits, in this particular subject, the words, each and every word plays important role when you are writing it. The way it is in the law. Okay. And remember in provisions, if there is a or, there is a and, there is a huge difference in or and and. Sometimes shall, may, will, they also contain a huge difference in provisions. So similarly, we have that much important on the words in this subject also. So whatever we are writing, we have to be sure that is appropriate and correct. If you miss out a single word also, it may result in something different. Each and every word has its importance, and that is the thing we need to understand. For example, in this overall objective itself, if I tell you that, see, I'll tell you one more thing. When I talk about reasonable assurance, I know whether financial statement, that is my subject matter, is as a whole, again, are free from material misstatement. Why as a whole? Because I am considering whole financial statement. And when I talk about material misstatement, I'm talking about materiality. I'm talking about the concept of materiality. And when I say whether due to fraud and error, I'm talking about just now we saw SA 240, auditor's responsibility relating to the fraud in a financial statement. An error, that is something, miss out, kind of. So we'll identify through testing, internal controls, risk assessment, thereby enabling the auditor. And the word enabling plays a very important role. That this particular thing means I have sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Then only that will enable me to express an opinion. Whether financial statement prepared or material aspect, again I'm talking about materiality, in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. So a lot, each and every term plays an important role in the overall definition itself, overall objective itself. Okay. Any doubts? Any doubts till now? So we were discussing about SA 299, where we were talking about that, okay, why SA 299 is necessary? SA 299 is necessary because, because it helps us to understand, or it helps us in laying down the principle for effective conduct of joint audit in the manner to achieve the overall objective. So it lays and it guides us that how you can achieve the overall objective by, following the principles of joint audit. Means it helps us. Okay, you do, if you want to do joint audit, then how you should do joint audit so that the end result and the overall objective can be achieved. That is the role of SA 299. Clear? Any doubt till now? Any doubt, guys? Now, I would like to write an exception to the scope of this standard. This scope. The exception to the scope is this standard does not cover scenario, or you can say does not cover relationship between a principal auditor sorry and another auditor, or kind of component auditor, another or component auditor, kind of. So principal auditor or another or component auditor. So it does not deal with this because that is something, handled by. This particular thing is handled by, you can say, another essay. There is another essay for this, which deals with this kind of area or this area. That is my essay 600. This is covered by essay 600. That is using the work of another auditor. Okay. And we will see when we discuss the essay 600, we will see what is the difference between essay 299 and essay 600, how they both are different. That is the scope part of my essay 299. Now, then, what is the objective of this standard, or what this standard does? We understood it provides the principle for effective conduct of joint audit. Okay, but how? What it provides in principles. So when I talk about these principles, this standard talks about, okay, it lays down broad principles of joint audit, broad principles for joint auditors. That okay, what should be in division of responsibility and all that thing in conduct of joint audit. Second, provide uniform approach. This standard provides uniform approach okay to the process of joint audit. I'll write JA as of now as a joint audit, or let me write full word. It create confusion. Joint audit. Thirdly, it identify the distinct area of work and coverage therefore by each joint auditor. Okay, so it helps in identifying distinct areas of work and coverage. Okay, therefore by each joint auditor, and it helps in identifying very important part, individual and joint responsibility. Individual and the joint responsibility in relation to audit. That is something, kind of principles that are, or you can say objectives covered by this particular standard. Objective of this standard. Any doubt? Okay. If no doubt, let's take a quick 10-minute break, and after the break, we'll gather back and continue the particular topic. Okay. Let's take a quick 10-minute break. Hello guys, welcome back. So let's continue the session. Okay. Now we understood the principles, objectives, and scope of the particular standard. Now the next thing we need to understand, okay, the requirements that is there in this particular standard, how it helps us to achieve the overall objective in case of a joint audit. Okay. So let's understand. Now, whenever we understand the standards requirement, we understand from a point of view of, okay, what are the requirements, what are the details, what objectives, overall responsibilities it provides us, kind of a checklist. Remember, I told you that in this case also we'll understand from this point of view. Now, when I talk about audit, I bifurcated the audit in 4 stages: audit planning, risk assessment, and allocation of the work. Then we have, with respect to the performance, responsibilities, and performance. Then we have a conclusion and reporting. So same way we will deal here. We will see here. So first of all, let's understand what. So when I say it provided the broad principles, so what principles with respect to audit planning? Principles regarding audit planning. Risk assessment, and allocation of work. So it provides us principles regarding audit planning, risk assessment, and allocation of work. Now, when I say these stages, what is the principles that are being provided over here? So first, the first principle that it provides, that the engagement partner and key members of the engagement team from all the teams shall be involved in the audit planning. So you need to keep everyone informed about the planning that is being happened. Okay. So engagement partner plus other key members shall be involved in audit planning. Now, these both should be from each joint auditors. Engagement partner and key members from each joint auditor or joint auditors team, okay, shall be involved in planning. Why? The reason, because that the key members and engagement partners shall be there in the planning in order to effectively communicate that what is the plan and everything. So unless and until they won't take part in the planning, it will be very difficult to finalize the planning. Second, the standard says that joint auditors shall establish an overall strategy. So joint auditors, I will use JA for that as of now, because a lot of times I will write this particular term. Joint auditors shall establish what? Overall overall audit strategy. Now, when I talk about overall audit strategy, that should set scope, timing, and direction of audit. So overall audit strategy that provides scope, timing, okay, and direction of audit. Then what? Then says this standard says that okay, in order to effectively perform the audit, you need to develop a joint audit plan. So develop a joint audit plan. Okay. Now the question comes is how to develop and what are the things we need to think about or look into when we are developing the joint audit plan. So how to develop joint audit plan? That is the next question anyone will ask. How to develop a joint audit plan? If that standard says that develop a joint audit plan, then how? So it says that in order to develop a joint audit plan, okay, joint auditors are required to first identify division of audit areas. That is the responsibility we were talking about. Division of audit areas. Plus, identify common audit areas. So, two separate things. Division of audit areas means separate audit areas and common audit areas among joint auditors. Okay. And that should be based on the scope. Okay. That should be the based on the overall scope of the audit. Now, this overall scope of the audit will be divided into separate audit areas and common audit areas, two different things. And that together will define, okay, the overall scope and scope of each individual auditor. So I'll tell you how. Within graph, I'll try to portray how it is. So let's say this is the overall scope of audit. Okay, overall scope of audit. Now, when I say overall scope, so as I said, they need to identify individual areas for the audit. Okay, separate audit areas. So I can say this is the separate audit area. For Mr. A, or this can I can say separate audit area for hypothetical example. When I was referring to you, I will say Mr. B. Okay. If that is a scenario, then we have a separate audit areas. But what about the left of the area? So the area which is left out is a common audit area. Okay. The area which is left out is a common audit area. Now, for the common audit area, okay, both the auditors, A and B, will be responsible. They will be performing audit together. But for the separate areas, A will look after for his area, B will look after for his area. For example, let's say I put FA fixed asset, trade receivables, trade payables, liabilities, okay, in the bucket of Mr. A, like they mutually decided. When I say current assets, investments, okay, P&L, and you can say equity, all in the bucket of Mr. B. So something like that. And the areas which are left out, kind of contingent liability, okay, taxes, regulatory, compliance, other compliances, all those areas will be common audit areas. So if that is a scenario, litigation, if this is a scenario, going concern assessment, a lot of things are there, estimations and all, a lot of things will be there, a lot of things. If that is a scenario, then that will be the common audit area. This is an example. So this is how the standards requires to be set the audit area. Okay. Then what? Then ascertain the reporting objective of the engagement. Okay, it means simple. Identify when it is we are required to report, issue audit report, so that we can plan the timing of audit. So ascertain the reporting requirement, or timeline, okay, of the engagement, so that, or in order to plan, the audit and the nature of communication required, to plan the audit and the communication required, kind of. Okay, so you need to ascertain the reporting requirements and timeline, when you are required to report, what you are required to report, in order to ascertain the plan of the audit and in order to finalize the plan and audit communications. Okay, let's say for example, you need to report, let's say I identified, for example, I identified that final date for audit report issue. Audit report issue is to be done on 30/6/2023. That's the last date that I need to do. Okay, last date to issue the audit report. Now, based on this, I have to do a back calculations. So I will identify, okay, now if I have to do back calculation, then from this point, from point of date of audit report, here, what I need to do is I need to complete my engagement, and I need to, I need to do completion, everything by, let's say, 15 days before, and I need to keep the file for review open and everything. So 15/6/2023 audit completion. And let's say, for example, if that is a scenario for the audit completion, that, okay, this is the time that I'm going to take, then the next thing is, from here, I need to plan, okay, that is something, this is the time I read for testing. So I need to start testing. Let's say by somewhere in the month of December, so that I need the time. So let's say start testing by 1/12/2022, somewhere here. And for that itself, like if I can start the testing, I need to perform planning. Okay. Now to perform the planning, I need again some time. I can say start planning by 1/10/22. So start of the audit or planning anyhow. So I need to first start planning, then I will perform testing, start testing. I need to conclude the testing by this date, and then I will issue the report by this date. So these are the phases of audit that I need to plan. And in order to plan, I need to again break down each and every phase in such a detail that, I am able to identify what is the final outcome and which date, when I'm required to, do what thing, in order to achieve the overall objective on a timely basis. Okay. So this is how the standards require you to do that. Ascertain the reporting requirement timeline in order to plan the audit and communication required. Then consider and communicate all joint auditors the factors are significant in with respect to the audit. So if you have something, some knowledge of significant factors, then communicate with all the auditors. So communicate, consider and communicate significant factors, okay, to all auditors, to all joint auditors. Then consider the result of preliminary activities, and and you need to provide that information to all. So consider results of preliminary activities, okay, and other knowledge that you have gained on similar or other engagement performed by earlier performed earlier by the same partner, or within the same entity itself, same firm itself. So consider result of preliminary activity and knowledge from other and similar engagements. Okay. And when I say ascertain the reporting requirements, after the ascertaining the reporting requirement in order to plan the audit, you need to plan the audit actually. Like, you need to ascertain nature, timing, and extent of resources necessary to perform for the engagement, or resources required. So you need to ascertain the nature, timing, and extent of resource required to perform the engagement after ascertaining. Let's say, for example, I want to start from 11022 to I need to complete it by 36. How many people I need? Okay. Is it possible to perform the whole audit within 6 months? Or I might require more period or less period? What is the resource I required? Number of people on each stage. Okay. Number of people on this is planning, execution, or you can say performance, and reporting. So on each of the stage, how many people I require? Usually I require more people at the performance time rather than the reporting or planning time. So, I need to understand the resource requirement, and accordingly I need to plan my audit. Okay. Then the next steps is that at the risk at this stage, this particular stage, risk assessment or risk of material misstatement is required to be considered and assessed by each auditor, not by one, but each auditor. So when I say I need to, do all this activity, identify a division of areas and all those stuff, develop a joint audit plan, and overall audit strategy. For that, I need to perform risk assessment, and that is required to be performed by each of the auditor. Perform risk assessment, okay, and communicate to other joint auditors. Okay. Now, this is required to be done by all joint auditors. Sorry. Sorry. This is required to be done by all joint auditors. Okay, all joint auditors have to do this. And then only we can say, okay, they identified the risk assessment, communicated with each other, and that's the main part, to communicate with each other. They have to discuss, then joint auditors have to discuss the nature, timing, and extent of resources for common areas. That okay, what nature, timing, and extent we require to perform this of resources are required to perform the common areas. What you will perform in common area, how many my team members will be there, how many your team members will be there, what all things will be there. Sorry. Then this is something we are talking about, how to develop joint audit plan. Now, principles, there is one last principle that I specifically kept here, open space, that is obtain common engagement letter and management representation letter. So auditors are not required to obtain different engagement letters with different terms and conditions. They should have common engagement letter and common management representation letter. That should be the main part. Okay, just at the start of the audit. And once they do that, they develop the joint audit plan, they do all these activities. What is required to be done is then after performance of all this stuff, document the above process, okay, the whatever work you have done, whatever you have, we discussed, document above matters and communicate to all joint auditors plus all joint auditors shall sign on the above, okay, shall sign the above documented matters. The last step here is coming from another standard. When remember in SA 260, we've discussed about that, okay, we need to communicate overview of the plan scope, timing of the audit. Okay, we need to communicate what is the plan scope and timing of the audit from SA 260. Same way, if SA 260 says that you need to communicate the plan scope and timing of the audit, the same has been recreated in SA 299. That is something, coming from SA 260 in SA 299. That is, communicate the above to those charged with governance. This is as per or in line with SA 260. So this is something, coming from SA 260 that you need to report or you need to communicate, plan scope and timing of the audit. And we have discussed that only. That, this is nothing but my joint audit plan and timing, risk assessment, audit planning and risk assessment. So I need to discuss that with I need to communicate the same to those charged with governance in line with SA 220, SA 260. Any doubts till now? Any doubts? Any doubts in understanding the requirement here? Any doubts? No doubts? If no further doubts, let's proceed further. See, I'm trying to explain the standards with examples. Wherever you feel you don't have the clarity, you need more clarity, please ask. Because when the practical questions will be there, this clarity will help you with in response in regards to answers that you need to give. Now, the second part of the standard talks about responsibility and coordinating among joint auditors. I'm talking about performance now, the second step. And coordination among joint auditors. That is kind of performance, you can say. Okay. Now, with respect to, first of all, the responsibility, first and foremost part, responsibility. When I say responsibility or performance, each joint auditor shall only be responsible for the work allocated to such joint auditor. So, basic thing, each joint auditor shall be responsible for the work allocated to such joint auditor. Means if a particular area is allocated to me, then I am responsible for that particular area itself. I am only responsible for that particular area itself, including its execution and the audit procedures that I will be performing. So for that area, I am, I am the one who will be responsible for that. Clear? Now, what about the common area? Or what about other areas which are, not individually assigned? Now, there are certain areas which are not individually assigned. Then what should be done for that? Now, for that, I can say jointly and severally responsible, kind of. So, a term that will be used multiple times, that is jointly and severally responsible. What we mean by that means all the joint auditors are responsible jointly and individually also for these areas. Means kind of a common area, but they are together responsible for that. Individual, in cumulative, in total also, let's say for example, if there are three joint auditors together and individually also are they are responsible for the common areas. But which are these common areas or which are these areas where the joint auditors are jointly and severally responsible? First, a audit work which is not divided, like a common area. Audit work which is not divided among the joint auditors. Okay, and is carried by all joint auditors. It happens that at the time of planning you might miss out one area or something later comes up, but that is allocated to all the joint auditors together. Some additional scope, some additional work. In that case, all the joint auditors will be jointly and severally responsible for it. Decisions taken by all the joint auditors under planning for the common area. Okay. Decisions taken by all joint auditors, okay, under planning in respect of common areas. Regards to their nature, timing, extent of the audit or procedures to be performed by each joint auditor. Matters which are brought to the notice of joint auditor by any one of them. So if there is a matter which is brought by any one of joint auditor to others, for that all will be responsible, and in order to have that there should be agreement among the joint auditors. Means matter which is brought by one joint auditor to another and on which there is agreement among all the joint auditors. I'll tell you why. For example, now let's say Mr. A, and there are three joint auditors, A, B, and C. Mr. A identified fraud of rupees, let's say 3 CR, and he informed that to all auditors. He informed Mr. B and Mr. C. Okay. He communicated that to Mr. B and Mr. C also. So A, B, C, and are joint auditors. Now, all the three together, then all three agreed that there is fraud. All three agreed that there is fraud. Now, however, they did not report to central government. Okay, they did not report to central government. Now, in that case, if they have not reported the matter to the central government, what will be the scenario? They are liable under section 140, 143.12. Okay. Now, if that is the scenario, then all the joint auditors are liable individually, means jointly and severally both. Okay, because they were supposed to, report the matter, but they did not report the matter. Now, consider another example where Mr. A identified the fraud. He communicated to B and C. Okay. What if after communication to Mr. B and C, they both disagreed for presence of fraud? What if after communicating to B and C, they both disagreed that there is no fraud, you are misinterpreting the things, and they did not report the matter? Now, in the current scenario, the question will arise, if there was an actual fraud, who is the responsible? In this particular scenario, it could be says that, there was a responsibility of Mr. A also to report and Mr. B and C also to report. But if there was no actual fraud, okay, then Mr. B and C are not responsible because there was no agreement in that scenario. Only Mr. A will be responsible if any of the issue then later identified in that particular area. So agreement between all the joint auditors, so among joint auditors is something required, where they agree, okay, this is the thing that we agree upon, okay, and this is the plan we agree upon, this is something we agree upon. And then on the basis of that, if they do not proceed properly, then there is an issue. Kind of, you can say. Okay. So matters which brought by any one of joint auditors to others, on which there is an agreement among joint auditors. Then next area is examine that the financial statement of the entity comply with the requirements of relevant statute. Examine the financial statement, examine that the financial statement of entity comply with relevant statute. Including presentation, that we see that presentation and disclosure of financial statement is as per applicable financial reporting framework, no matter whose area it is. Whenever you are signing the financial statement, you have to make sure that the presentation and disclosure is as per applicable financial reporting framework, and for that, each auditor will be jointly and severally responsible. The last part is that audit report complies with relevant statutes and applicable standards on auditing or other pronouncement by ICAI. So essays and other pronouncement by ICAI. So for these areas, auditors will be jointly and severally responsible. Presentation of financial statement, whether the financial statement comply with the relevant statute, audit report. So all these areas, irrespective of what area or disclosure pertains to whichever area, auditor will be responsible. All the joint auditors will be responsible. Clear? Any doubt? See, there is a question now. If there is a fraud and other joint auditor does not agree, that how the first auditor is required to deal with the situation. There are two things with respect to the fraud. First, number one, what is your reporting requirement? First, you need to understand what is the reporting requirement with respect to the fraud. Are you required to report fraud? Are you required to report also suspected fraud? Is it an actual fraud or a non-compliance? Who are involved? Based on that, your reporting requirement comes into the picture. Number one, if you are 100% sure there is a fraud, you have to perform your duty. Means, in the case, if let's say for example, Mr. A reports, and if there was an actual fraud where B and C disagreed, then in that case, B and C could be held liable because, even though Mr. A reported or, communicated the matter to the fraud, they did not pay attention or they did not investigate properly. They could be held grossly negligent. Remember in professional ethics, they could be held, they could be held guilty of professional misconduct on the grounds of being grossly negligent because they did not pay attention to the matters which were reported by Mr. A. So in that case, you need to understand first of all what is the reporting requirement, whether you need to report to the central government, whether you are required to report actual fraud, whether you are required to report only fraud beyond the threshold, what is the amount involved, who are involved, a lot of things are there. Then only appropriate plan of action and appropriate things can be decided in that case. So not a plain simple answer, I would say. A lot of factors are there which are required to be dealt in first. I hope I have answered your question. Any further doubts on this? Any doubts, guys? Any further doubts? Okay, let's proceed forward. Now, in order to have that, that with respect to responsibility. Now, second part comes is the coordination. So we were talking about responsibility, coordination among the joint auditors. Now we talk about the responsibility. There's individual responsibility and responsibility with respect to joint areas. Now, what about the coordination? There is a requirement or guidelines given with respect to the coordination also. So wherever any joint auditor comes across matters that are relevant to other areas of responsibility of other joint auditors, to areas of responsibility of other joint auditors. In that case, okay, which matters I'm talking about? Matters which require attention, disclosure, separate disclosure, discussion with management or those charged with governance, or require matters which require application of professional judgment. Okay, if that is the area, that is the matter that we are talking about, then the joint auditor has to communicate the same to all the joint auditors in writing. Okay, then joint auditor shall communicate to other joint auditors in writing prior to completion of audit. Okay, that is the coordination required. And if anyone fails in the coordination, then that auditor that has failed in the coordination will be responsible. So when I say coordination required, then the auditor which failed in the coordination will be responsible for that. The last part, which is with respect to audit conclusion. So we saw performance, we saw responsibilities and guidance with respect to planning. Now come to the conclusion and reporting. So when I talk about conclusion and reporting, the standard says that joint auditors are required to issue common auditor. So joint auditors shall issue common audit report. Okay. However, when there is a disagreement, if there is disagreement, in that case, with regard to an opinion, if there is a disagreement with regard to an opinion, okay, or any matter to be covered in audit report. For example, it could be like, key audit matter, or you can say EOM paragraph, OM paragraph, other matter paragraph, any of the matter. Okay. Opinion or any of the matter that is required to be covered by the audit report. Then for that issue separate audit report. Okay. So first thing, issue common audit report when there is no kind of, you can say, disagreement. But when there is a disagreement, issue separate audit report. Now, very important point is note, kind of important note, I would say. Joint auditor or any joint auditor is not bound by the views of majority. So you can say joint auditors or auditor are not bound by majority. Okay, means in case of opinion, if out of 5, 4 says okay, unmodified audit report, and 1 says modified audit report. In that case, 1 will issue separate audit report and 4 will issue common audit report. For example, four joint auditors say unmodified opinion. One joint auditor says modified opinion. Okay. Now, in that case, we will not apply the concept of majority and issue a common audit report. No. So, no concept of majority. That is for sure. And in that regard, for 4 joint auditors where there is a unmodified opinion, they will issue common audit report. For 1 joint auditor who says modified opinion, he will issue separate audit report. So two audit reports will be issued. Now, if two audit reports are issued, how the reader will come to know there are two audit reports? Like, okay, for example, if I have to issue or I am issuing common and separate, five of us are issuing common and separate audit report, then how anyone will come to know there are two audit reports, three audit reports, four audit reports? How they will come to know? What if, let's say, for example, when entities, we hand over audit report to entity to be published in the annual report. What if they remove the separate audit report? What if they remove the separate audit report? Are you getting my point? Just a minute. I think there is some network issue at my end. I think there was some network issue at my end. Am I audible now? Can anyone of you guys just put a comment? Am I audible? Am I audible or not? Okay, good job. Thank you. Yes. So, how anyone will come to know that there are two separate audit reports in the scenario? What if the management removes one and only shows one audit report? Very good, Charu. Come on, guys. I ask this question to you. What if the management removes one common separate audit report, only shows common audit report? How anyone will come to know there are two audit reports? What you will do? Like, to show that there are two audit reports. What should be done in this scenario? Logically, what you will do? Come on, guys. What you will do? If there are two audit reports and management just removes one audit report, how will you come to know there is a missing one audit report? What is required to be done? Logically, what you will do? Quickly, come on. I have only received one answer from Charu. That is correct. You can do this, and that is required to be done in that scenario. When there are two audit reports, you should do this. Absolutely correct, Mancha. Very good. Come on, guys. What you will do if there are two audit reports? How will you make sure that two audit reports are read together? Pretty simple. Is provide a reference of separate audit report in the common audit report and provide a reference of common audit report in separate audit report. Means mention that this should be read with this should be read with this. Means in common audit report you provide a reference. provide a reference of separate audit report in common audit report, and same way provide a reference of common audit report in separate audit report. So let's say a later point in time also, if common audit report is modified and separate audit report is not modified, even after referring to separate audit report, people can come to know, or the readers will come to know, okay, there is some common audit report also. If by providing two references, okay, by providing references not in two but in all audit reports, you can make sure that whosoever will read the report will come to know about the other audit. So you need to provide in all audit reports the reference. If there are three reports, there could be three reports also. One common, two separate. Or if there are three joint auditors and three of the joint auditors have different opinion, there could be three separate audit reports. In all the three separate audit reports, there is requirement of having reference to rest of the two audit reports. Okay. By this way, everyone will come to know about the other audit reports that are being issued. Now the question comes is where to issue this reference? Where to provide this reference? Where the reference to other audit report is required to be given. Where you have to provide reference to other audit report in your audit report. Let's say, for example, you are issuing a separate audit report where you will mention about the reference. In which paragraph? Come on, guys. I know we are yet to discuss about reporting, but that should be, something guesswork, or you can apply some logic and, just guess where you will report. Just apply guess, or, something like, try to answer. I'm not saying just answer correctly only, but at least try to answer. Where do you think, as per you, that should be reported? Correctly, Abdul. Very good. Very good, Manan. So that should be reported in correct other matter para. And that is as per SA 706. That is required to be reported under other matter paragraph as per SA 706. Okay. Now, it comes to the part of the conclusion, or kind of concluding the audit, not reporting, but kind of evaluation of the misstatement. You can say concluding or evaluating the misstatement. So, as I said, each joint auditor is responsible for his individual area, which is already divided. In that case, the other joint auditors who have carried out their audit work, or the part of their work, okay, as per SA issued by ICAI, okay, in that case, it is not necessary for the joint auditor to review the work performed by another joint auditor. So, if other joint auditors have carried their work as per essay issued by ICAI, if the other joint auditors have carried out their part of audit work and the work has been actually performed in accordance with the standards of auditing issued by the ICAI of India, in that case, okay, joint auditor is not required to review the work performed by other joint auditor. But how will I identify that the work has been performed as per the standard issued by ICAI? In that case, I am not required to go and check. I will assume. So, I just, will tweak the word that not if, assume that joint auditor have carried their work as per the essay issued by ICAI. So that if the work is carried by the as per the essay issued by ICAI, in that case, other joint auditors are not required to review work performed by other joint auditors. Okay, so joint auditor is not required to review the work performed by other joint auditors. Okay. See, for us, in the case of joint audit, it is not possible to verify whether the work has been actually carried as per the standards issued by ICAI or not. For these separate areas, separate audit areas. In that case, we need to assume that the joint auditor has carried. Okay, we need to assume that the joint auditor has carried his work. We need to assume that joint auditor has carried his work in accordance with essay issued by ICAI, and hence joint auditor is not required to review the work performed by other joint auditor, or no test or additional test is required to be done. However, there is an exception to this. Exception is where the other joint auditor has highlighted or has brought any matter to the notice of other joint auditor. Okay, so where the other joint auditor has brought any matter to the notice of rest of the joint auditors, in that case, if the matter has been brought, then that other joint auditor has to kind of perform the work for that area. Okay, so it is necessary if, let's say for example, if any exception has been brought to your notice, you being the joint auditor, then you have to perform work for that particular area. Okay, because I have brought to your notice that this is required to be done. This is an issue. So in that case, you cannot assume that it is reviewed by some other person, or it is not my purview, or I am not aware of that. Okay, in that case, you being the joint auditor has to review because something has been brought with respect to your area in your notice, to your notice. Okay, otherwise, I'll bring this. If that is not the case, what if nothing has been brought to my notice? Okay, in that case, if nothing has been brought to my notice, I will assume if nothing has been brought to notice of joint auditors, then joint auditor will assume or has to assume that other joint auditors have brought any departure from the applicable financial reporting framework or significant observations that are relevant to their responsibility. Means, if nothing has been brought to our notice, then I will assume, okay, there is nothing to be brought and they have seen it, kind of. Then joint auditor has to assume that other joint auditors have brought whatever kind of, was available, whatever it was there. Not whatever, I'll say, all the matters that were supposed to be brought to the notice. Okay. So, in case if there is nothing there in front of me, I'll assume that, okay, everything has been presented and there is nothing further to be reported to me by any other joint auditor. So, I have done appropriately. Unless and until where other joint auditor brought anything, any matter to the notice. If that is the case, okay, if something has been brought, then I have to look into if that particular matter has not been brought to me. Okay. Or if I say that, okay, nothing has come to me, in that case, I'll assume that whatever everyone has identified, they have communicated or they have not identified anything. Kind of. Okay. Any doubt with respect to this point? Any doubt? No? Okay. One last area which I want to discuss here is, okay, in cases of branch audit and, divisional audits, where there are joint auditors also, there are branch auditors also. The combination of branch and joint auditor. Example, combination of branch and joint auditor. A complex case you can understand. When, let's say, for example, there are large entities with several branches, including unaudited branches, and or branches required to be audited by branch auditors. Okay. And branch auditors returns, it may happen that the branch auditor is one of the joint auditor, or branch auditor is providing audit report to the joint auditor. Okay, different joint auditor for review of the work based on the allocation of work. Hypothetical example. Okay. Let's say there is a company ABC Limited. Now it has three divisions. Wheel manufacturing, rubber manufacturing, okay, and rim manufacturing division. So there are three divisions: wheel, rubber, and rim. Okay. So what they do is here, now for this particular ABC Limited, there are three joint auditors. Joint auditors are X, Mr. X, Mr. Y, and Mr. Z. Now, under these three divisions, there were multiple branches. Okay, let's say for example, wheel manufacturer. There is a kind of Delhi branch. There is Ahmedabad branch. There is kind of Agra branch. In rubber manufacture, you have two branches or two locations where the rubber is being manufactured. One is in Kerala. Okay. Another you can say Kerala or any of the state. I'm taking hypothetical example. Okay, Kerala branch. Another is, let's say, Andhra Pradesh branch. Okay. And rim manufacture happens at only one place. That is only one place. That is MP branch. Now, let's say, for example, for these division and branches, a separate report is required. Separate report is being prepared because they are huge branches and, based on the requirement or, for the GST or something like that. They all have a GST or different loan, or could be, some of them are in, let's say, for example, this is in SEZ or kind of gift city. This is in gift. This is in SEZ. Okay. And for that purpose, they require separate audit reports. Now, what will happen is when a separate audit report, let's say for Delhi branch, will be prepared, and Ahmedabad branch, that will be submitted to manufacturing needs division auditor. Let's say Mr. X was responsible for this. Mr. X is responsible here. Mr. Y is looking for rubber, and Mr. Z is looking for rim. Now, when audit report of Delhi branch and Ahmedabad branch being submitted to Mr. X, okay, Mr. X will be responsible for financial statement of Delhi and Ahmedabad branch, including their disclosure, presentation and disclosure. Okay. In that case, the particular auditor here, okay, the particular auditor here will be separately and specific, will have a separate and specific responsibility, okay, in order to obtain information and explanation from the management to evaluate whether the financial statement that has been submitted by the branch auditor are appropriate or not. Okay. Again, so what will be the scenario is when the financial statement of a division or branch are audited by one of the joint auditor or other joint auditor, okay, and they are entitled to proceed basis on the that such financial statement. Let's say Mr. X was the responsible for these branches, and Mr. X has cumulated the financial statement, prepared the financial statement. In that case, Mr. X will be responsible. Mr. X will be responsible for his own branch financial statement, including its compliance with relevant regulatory laws and regulations. Its compliance with laws, regulation, statute, okay, and whether it presents a true and fair view. Okay, so Mr. X will be responsible for Delhi, Agra, and Ahmedabad branch. Although we discussed this, that where they will be, jointly and severally responsible area with respect to the presentation and disclosure of financial statement. Okay, when I say presentation and disclosure of financial statement as per FRS, I'm talking about FS of entity, not branch separately allocated to joint auditor or to any joint auditor. Okay. So if a branch, there is a financial statement of a branch which is separately allocated to a joint auditor, in that case, that joint auditor will be responsible. Same, examining the FS of the entity comply with the relevant statute. I'm talking about entity, not of the branch that is separately allocated to the joint auditor. So a complex case where you can say, combination of a branch auditor and joint auditor comes into a picture. Clear? Any doubts with respect to this particular standard or responsibility of an auditor, joint auditor, or responsibility of auditor in case of joint audit? Any doubt, any question? So that is the SA 299. What we discussed, joint audit of a financial statement and auditor's responsibility in case of a joint audit of financial statement. Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? This is kind of a very complex example that I have written over here. Okay, you can say important example. Now the question is, if Mr. Y come across a fraud that has happened in wheel manufacturing unit, should he report that? Yes, he has to communicate that matter to all the auditors. Reason why? Let's say, for example, the fraud is in procurement of the wheel manufacturing unit. Now there are chances that if the procurement is impacted for the wheel manufacturing, the procurement of rubber and rim manufacturing could also be impacted. Okay. In that case, it is very important for any of the joint auditor, if they come across any matter which is required to be reported to other auditors, and if that could help them in the risk assessment also, then he has to report. So that is something we saw in the planning also. Okay, planning part. That when developing a planning, they have to communicate. Okay, and reassess from time to time, factors, significant factors to all the joint auditors. Consider and communicate significant factors to all the joint auditors that may help them to identify additional areas where they might need to perform additional procedures, or areas where could be high risk and they need to perform additional procedures. Okay. Any other doubt, guys? Definitely, Charu, definitely. Any other doubts? There is one more essay which is left, basically, that is essay 402 that I need to cover. Okay. And again, responsibility of auditor in a service organization kind of environment. I need to cover that one. So I will cover in next lecture that essay, and then we will start the next chapter also. Okay. So if no further doubts, then thank you, guys. Thank you for participating in today's lecture. Please revise after this lecture. Thank you. Thank you very much. Session concluded, Akshoshi.